guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing the 5 things you should know before you buy a Tesla. Alright guys, number 1 on my list here for things you should know is regen braking. Regenerative braking is basically braking done by the electric motors when you let off the gas, and that is to try and recoup some energy or electricity to recharge the batteries for better range. I was not familiar with how intrusive that braking can be until I test drove my first Tesla, and it is pretty prominent. So if you're used to using the brake on a regular gas car, this is going to be a learning curve for you. You just have to learn to modulate the gas pedal, so slowly let off the gas pedal when you're wanting to slow down or brake. With the Teslas, unfortunately, you cannot turn regenerative braking completely off. A lot of electric car makers have a setting where you can turn the regen braking off if you don't like it, but with Tesla you do not have that option. They do offer a couple of options when you're below 10 miles per hour for when you're coming to a stop. One is called roll and one is called creep, but it will not let you turn it completely off. So just be aware when you purchase a Tesla, you're going to have to relearn your braking process. Number 2, advertised range. When you start looking at Teslas, you'll see that they have pretty good range, higher than some of the other electric car makers. Like my Tesla Model Y long range is supposed to be rated at 330 miles of range. That is if you went from 100% completely to 0, which you're never going to do. So right out the gate, you're never going to get 330 miles range. Then there's a couple other factors depending on how you drive. Unless you drive like 5 miles under the speed limit everywhere you go, you are probably never going to get 330 miles range. Then the big thing that I did not take into account, I did read about it, but another big factor is weather. Where I live in the Midwest, temperatures can play a big role. You get about 30% less range in the wintertime when the temperatures are really cold. And then here recently, I took a mini road trip, about 200 miles round trip, and it was super windy, about 25 to 30 mile an hour winds. When we were going to our destination, the wind was pushing us, and it did okay. But then on the way home, we were going into that wind, and it was probably 15 to 20% less range going into that strong wind. So between cold temperatures, wind, and the speed and how you drive your vehicle is going to play a big part in the range that you get driving a Tesla or electric car in general. So just be aware, whatever the advertised range is, you're not going to get that number. Okay, number 3 on the list is adaptive cruise control, or what Tesla likes to call AutoPilot. And AutoPilot is just a glorified adaptive cruise like many cars have these days that'll keep you in between the lines with steering, and then also a safe distance behind vehicles if you come up on them too fast where you have AutoPilot / cruise control turned on. The problem with that is there's no way to turn off adaptive cruise / AutoPilot in a Tesla. If you want cruise to be set for a speed that you want to go, AutoPilot's going to be engaged and you can't turn it off. I had an issue with that where it was very intrusive here not too long ago. I was passing a semi, and the semi came over into my lane, and basically the car just slammed on the brakes. And in that scenario, it would have been safer or better to accelerate and get around the semi because I was already halfway past. But the Tesla decided that it knew better, and it did not. So the adaptive cruise / AutoPilot is not perfect. It can be over intrusive, so definitely something you'll need to be aware of there. The other thing with the cruise control is there's no simple resume function. I use resume on my gas-powered cars quite a bit when I'm on a road trip. You know, if you have to slow down for whatever reason and you just want to go back to the same speed, you'd hit resume. No resume function on a Tesla. It's crazy. I couldn't believe that there wasn't one. There's some crazy settings that you can go into and say that you always want to go a certain amount over the speed limit, and you can set that so then it would go back to that speed, but you cannot go back to the exact speed you were going before because there is no resume function. Number 4, phantom drain. I did not know this was a term in the EV world, but I guess it is. Basically, that is when you leave your car in a garage or parked for a long period of time and don't drive it. You may notice that it's at 1% for battery level, and then a week later, or however many days later, you go out to it and the battery will be a lot lower in charge. Sometimes more than others, but just depends how long it sits and what kind of options you have enabled. But this is basically due to the car always being connected. So it's always has a signal to the internet because you can use the remote to do things like heat up the car and check in on it, see what the battery level's at. So even though the car is powered off, it is not ever truly off. So you'll definitely want to keep that in mind if you're going to leave your Tesla sitting for a long period of time before you drive it, because the battery level will go down. Okay, the last one on the list, number 5 of my things you should know before you buy a Tesla, is kind of trivial, nothing too crazy, but with a Tesla there is no button to turn the car on. Like you might be used to hitting a button to start the engine on a gas-powered car. Nothing like that. Basically, I use my phone as a key. I get in the car, I put my foot on the brake, put it into reverse or drive, and just go. I do not have to start the car or power it on. It just knows. The same goes for when you want to turn the car off. You put the car in park and then you just get out of the car and then it shuts off by itself. There's nothing for you to push or to actually turn off. So that just is a little different compared to what most people are used to, but it is kind of convenient that you never really have to start the car. Alright guys, so that's my 5 things that you should know before you buy a Tesla list. If you think of anything that I might have left off, leave it below in the comments. I'd be interested to hear from you guys. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more Tesla content. We'll have some more videos coming out soon. But I appreciate you guys tuning in again, and have a good one.